Yeah, g'day everyone. Welcome to another Tuesday night podcast of the Eureka Conservative, where we try to develop and announce policy for the betterment of Australia, but we've, for good reason, not quite achieved that this week. We also didn't achieve it last week, and oh, here we go. I've never noticed that before. Eureka Conservative. Oh, there you go. Got a big announcement off my YouTube. There you go. Sorry, guys, just got easily distracted. It's been one of those weeks. As you probably can tell a little bit, we've had a long day today. Me and the dog over there, JJ, my partner in crime. He's chilling out after a big day. We, for those who might have seen my usual daily rant, we've had a 3-hour business meeting today. Business has been getting busy. Hasn't quite taken off, but it's very close. And so, yeah, we had a 3-hour business meeting and he came with me. So he's a bit tired now after 3 hours in a cafe and me and this other guy talking, him watching dogs going past. So it was an interesting day. Beautiful day in Melbourne, finally. Watching a beautiful sunset from my upstairs office at the moment over the bay, which is nice. And, yeah, so this week, sadly, I have not been able to come up with some policy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually there's one bit of policy that's stuck in my craw this week. I'm just going to get it up and share it. I'm sure we've got this up on our policy platform. And it's just I mentioned this week. I want to go over tonight what is Australia first? What's it mean? You know, so tonight's going to not be so much about policy as it's going to be about politics. And we're hearing a lot more America first, Australia first, what it means. This is all started by Trump over in America. And it's interesting, I think, following Trump, for example, and I'm a big supporter of the man, but it is interesting watching the phenomenon that is Trump. So he came in on a big America First platform, but I don't know whether I've seen any other American president dominate world politics like he does. So it sort of got me thinking. He's definitely America First. I don't think you have to be. There's people that are criticising him, like Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes. You know, most of them are idiots. I don't see how in these days and times. I think you can be America first. I think you can be Australia first, but you can't close yourself off from the rest of the world. It's just these days with the technology we've got and the way people can travel, it is very difficult to say, okay, we are Australia first, but a lot of people are saying we're Australia only. We are only, even though we've got a lot of immigration coming in and we're all annoyed with that, we're still not a large country population-wise. We haven't got the ability, we haven't got the ability to defend ourselves if a major military power decided to take us on. So we do have to rely on alliances to make sure that our country's safe and what we have here is safe. For all his faults, and I hate the bastard, but I thought Albo's trip to America to secure the AUKUS deal and have that alliance strengthen even further, which he seems to have done. Give him credit where credit's due. There's other things he probably did on that trip that were crap, but on that one, give him credit. Anytime you can do that helps keep our shore safe is a good thing. So he's done that. So one of the few ticks we can give him, all right? There's another few ticks like the way, which I only discovered that I haven't been on social media for, it seems like a month, but it's been about a week. I'll get to this in a minute. And yeah, I only found out about from Warren Dean today. Apparently, all our super funds are going to be invested in America. I've got to look into that more, but that's certainly not Australia first. You'd think, I don't mind. A lot of people are going to get up in arms about it. I think our super funds have got to be invested, if you're going to have them, in places where they'll get their biggest bang for buck. But there's also got to be a percentage invested in Australia back into Australian industry and jobs. It shouldn't be just all going to one country. Now, I don't know the details enough, but from what Rowan was saying, it sounds like all the superannuation investment is going to the Yanks. Now, that is and apparently that's going to create a lot of jobs. I don't know whether this is the behind-the-scenes deal to secure the AUKUS deal and all the other things that went with it. But, we also signed a deal with about our minerals. I don't know what they call it, the special minerals or rich minerals, what they need for AI and all that sort of thing. So Australia's got a fair whack of that, and we've seemed to have signed off a lot there. So I just hope that whoever the people are negotiating these deals have got our best interest at heart. And we're just not being sold down the proverbial river where you and I as taxpayers don't see any real benefit out of this, which we should be doing. If you look at a lot of other countries, the Middle Eastern countries, Norway's got a pretty good deal with their oil reserve. And a lot of that money gets funneled via taxes, tariffs, whatever. And Trump's doing it, obviously, with tariffs in America. So their citizens benefit. I think in too many occasions, our citizens don't. Now, so that's dealing internationally. So we can look after Australians as a first priority. So to me, if you do it right, that's Australia first. If you do it wrong, it's not. So I just think we've got to be very careful. We don't, and I'm big. I want to see immigration cut. If you look through my policies that we put up on the website, I've got a whole bunch of things there about citizenship and governance and right to vote, which we're about to go over tonight because we're going on Australia first. I think you can put a whole policy framework around that to ensure that Australians come first in all these negotiations. It beggars belief why this hasn't been put in the past. But we had, which I'll show you later. Apparently, I haven't seen it. I just put it into my Eureka Conservative bookmark on X. And apparently, Maureen Farquhar, or whatever her stupid name is, the Pakistani woman, she's back in there banging on about Australians being racist. So, that woman shouldn't be sitting in our parliament. She's not Australia first. She's Pakistan first. She's Muslim first. She's not Australian first. So, but you've got to be careful. We also I don't have any problem with our resources being sold overseas, even to China, as long as we're getting a magnificent deal back. If we're giving that stuff, predominantly away to China, and then we're paying more for the renewables and all this crap that we're bringing in that's been manufactured in China or anything else because of the energy they're producing from our coal, and we're losing out, then that's an issue. So, I just think we've got to be very careful. I don't also think, for example, in defence technology, I'm not too sure that Australia has, a monopoly on the smartest brains on defence technology. Parts are going to making jets, rockets, whatever. So, if you become Australia only, be Australia first, but you can't become Australia only. That'll probably get some people pissed off with me. I don't particularly care. If you follow me for long enough, I just call a spade a spade. I wish I got paid for this. I don't. Though I'll come up with something later on that. But I just think we've got to be very careful before we go, we're Australia only. There's a lot of parts in there that we would be cutting off, I believe, our nose to spite our face. I actually do believe in certain areas. People talk about bringing manufacturing back. I like what Trump's doing with tariffs over in America. I don't see why we can't do tariffs here again. Now, that'll also, you're on a double-edged sword here, or I am, because that will also piss off a lot of people who believe in free trade. But free trade sometimes is a poison. It's destroyed our manufacturing industry in many areas because we just can't compete internationally with the low wages of some foreign countries. So, we've got to protect our own manufacturing, our own industry, and sometimes that's going to mean a tariff. Does that mean there's a tariff on anything? Everything? Sorry, no, it doesn't. But I think we've been taken advantage on a number of things. So, I also think we've got to be very careful. There could be some time in the future. Who knows? It could be sooner rather than later. Hopefully, it's a lot later. But we'll need some allies. In a war or in a confrontation or a conflict. Other countries aren't going to come to our aid if we don't reciprocate. That's the whole point of an alliance. You sign an alliance, so if they need you, you'll go. If they need you, you'll go help them. And if we need them, they'll come help us. That's the whole point of alliance, especially if we had a military that could defend ourselves, well, okay. But we don't. We never have. Even in World War II, if the Yanks didn't come in, we lose World War II. The Japanese bombed the shit out of them, so that's their fault. But, I think if you study your history, we're in a pretty precarious position there at one stage. But, the Aussie diggers did such a magnificent job. But if we didn't have the Yanks there to back us, I think we would have struggled. So, and I think that's a fair assessment. We just didn't have the population or the industrial might to win that war by ourselves. So you need alliances. And that's why I think you don't have to be all the way with the USA, by the way. For example, I didn't think we needed to go into Iraq. That's, I think, one criticism you can have of Howard. I think one defense he has is he got fed the same crappy intelligence that the Yanks got, if it was crappy intelligence. One day we'll find that out. I don't know when. But, do we also want to be – we have some great minds in Australia that come up. We punch above our weight. So a lot of those minds will go overseas and bring that IQ back to Australia. If we come Australia first, will those countries continue taking our best and brightest to try and bring something back into our best and brightest of the future? So I think there's just a lot of ramifications you've got to be very careful of. You certainly got to identify what is negative for Australia, and you got to also try and identify what's the net positive. So I've got no issue, for example, on universities, so overseas students, but there has to be a limit, a roof on what we can bring in, a quota, if you like. There has to be a restriction on how many students we can bring in so we can make sure we have enough spaces for every Aussie kid that wants to get a proper education. So, and if we've got extra spaces after that, well, good. Let's bring in some overseas students and they can help finance the education system. But the priority's got to be Australian students. But if we've got space and we can accommodate it, then okay, foreign students, as long as they're not going to be potentially an enemy. So I think, you got to weigh up a whole bunch of things. I just wonder whether we get it confused, the Australia first, because Trump, I don't think, is confused. Trump is America first, but he's all over the world stage. And you could say that is all his ego, but he's done some amazing things for America through his diplomacy internationally. That trip he did on the Middle East, the investment he brought back in, he's just had more investment for Australia, investment from England. Every time he goes overseas, the art of the deal is on show. So he's America first, but he's not America only, and I think that's the take we need to take. I don't think we can. I think there's a lot of what's the word? I can't remember it. Nostalgia. We want to go back. There's a lot of people talking about, and this is what I see on X and the replies I get. A lot of people want to go back to a white Australia, or we want to go back to what it was in 1945, or we want to have remigration. We want to do this. We want to do that. I just think we have got to be careful. Oh, interesting. Sorry. With a lot of that. Just get my chat up, everyone. Sorry. Better double check. Yeah. So I forgot to double check my mic and camera on the YouTube channel. So it's working, which is good. So I do my own little check because one episode here, I sat and talked for 2-3 hours over nothing. So look, I understand why people, and I get frustrated with it too. I think we're always being, it always feels like we're being done over as citizens of this country for overseas interest. And I totally get how people are pissed off with that. It pisses me off. For example, a part of our policy is to get out of the WEF, the World Economic Forum, the WHO, this thing they're signing with the WHO where they can give us direction so our government can, bring in vaccine mandates and all that crap. We've got to get out of all that sort of stuff. The UN, I'd be happy for us to get out of the UN. I think it's the most corrupt political body on the planet. So we don't need to be signing up to all these international things, but can we then have relationships with other countries? I think, yes, we can. So I think it'd be a silly move to go entirely Australia only. It's got to be Australia first, but not Australia only. And I put up that question. I didn't put anything else. And a lot of it was interesting, the responses. It was probably about, I would say 40, 60, where people said, yeah, we need to be Australia first, but not Australia only. And then the 60%, no, Australia only, Australia first, nothing else matters, all that sort of thing. I don't think that's the way we need to go. You know, you can have your point of view on that. That's fine. We can all have our different points of view. But, you know, I think, again, you'd cut off your nose to spite your face if you went Australia only. There's just certain things we wouldn't compete in that we do need some overseas help with. So, and it's such a small world. In fact, I would hope we could actually, for example, on this e-safety commissioner, and I hope at some stage we gets in front of Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Now, I think there was a missed opportunity, but the media are never going to ask it. It would have been nice to have a reporter when Albo was at that table to raise up, you know, there's Andrew Clennell, he raised up about Kevin Rudd. Why not raise up about the e-safety commissioner and potentially digital ID and how they're banning kids off social media? You know, we could actually hopefully get some assistance, JD Vance, Trump, Elon Musk, and hopefully they can help us get rid of some of this crap that's coming in. So anyway, I just think that needs a lot more consideration. And, you know, I'll be interested to get Shallow Chell on here. He's told me he'll come on in November. I'm going to hold you to it, mate. Again, I find Scott really fascinating. And I'm not trying to kiss his ass. I just do. I think he's a really interesting guy. I think he speaks well. I think he's got a really people personality about him. I think he could be a future leader. Honestly, I do. I think I don't know whether he's thinking that way. Sometimes he speaks that way. But for him to do that, I think he's got to be careful he doesn't close off his base too much. You know, whether you like it or not, the face of Australia has changed a lot. One thing, I'm not a huge fan of Farage. I'm very nervous about him in England and reform. But one thing I do agree a lot, Farage talks about remigration because the same battle of arguments going on over there. I just don't see how we can legitimately remigrate citizens who've been here 1, 2, 3 generations in just because they've got a different background culturally to us. You know, if you're born in Australia, you're a citizen of this country. You know, not everybody in Australia, if you want to go back to a white Australia policy, great. Look at all the dickheads in our parliament that are white. You know, a white Australia policy is not going to, for those who want to push it, it's actually not going to solve a lot of our problems because whether you're white, brown, Asian, Indian, whatever, in every demographic, there's a bunch of dickheads. And I said this yesterday after question time. Just look at our parliament. We've got so many morons sitting in that parliament. So, you know, if you think you're going to, all of a sudden it's going to be utopia simply because we kick out everyone who's not white, Anglo with some sort of European background, you're not getting there. That's just my opinion. You can disagree with it, whatever you want to do. So, look, I want to support an Australia First policy, but I don't want to support it if it's just Australia only and relies on that white only, whatever. I'm opposed to that. So anyway, love me or hate me for it, that's what you get. So in other areas, we'll be in furious agreement. So, and I think you'll see that from our policy platform. Speaking of which, I'm just going to get the page up and go over. So we have an unannouncing policy, but I do want to go over one. I just think after watching Parliament the other day, locking in our Christian culture, technically free, so an Australian Republic and Australian Republic Part 2, the establishment of Australian National Guard, defence and Australian Republic Part 1, that's under 2. You'd see here withdrawal from any treaty organisation that isn't in Australia's best interest, the introduction of a Bill of Rights, electoral and government. Here we go. So electoral and government reform. That's not the one I'm looking for. No, I don't think that's the one I'm looking for either. Sorry, I should know my own policy platform, shouldn't I? Holding our politicians to account, zero tolerance. That's about law. Holding our maybe I haven't done. I thought I had done this. The pillar of hope and innovation. The pillars of hope, educational reform, educational. It's not there. Maybe I've got it under Republic. Just bear with me, guys. Sorry. Let's have a look. Okay, so it's not in part one. I'm sure I put in here about citizenship and new constitution, new constitution, especially those. New constitution must recognise this country as a nation built in the new constitution. Maybe I haven't. Well, that's disappointing. Well, there you go. That's my new policy for next week. The policy I'm thinking about that I thought I had done was about citizenship and governance, electoral and government reform, and withdraw the introduction of a Bill of Rights. Maybe, no, that's not it. Holding our politicians to account, that's not it. Education reform, defence, holding our politicians to account again. Zero tolerance, establishment of Australian National Guard, affordable home means a proper eminent affordable home ownership, educational. Well, I'll be. I am sure maybe just bear with me, guys. Well. The pillars of governance. There we go. No, that's not it. All right. Well, there you go. I've got some work to do before next week. So look, I'll just go over it quickly anyway. Sorry, guys. I told you it's been a busy week. I'm not as organised as I would, so I'll just come back on screen. So the basics of it are this, is there's got to be, and I talked about this today in my rant if you listen to it, so forgive me if I'm going over it again. There has got to be some value on our citizenship, right? And this is where I think it does, for example, play into what Australia First is all about. I think you have to earn the right, for example, to vote. So if you've just recently arrived in Australia, like Tony Burke and all them are doing, and it takes a journey to become a citizen, but I don't think you actually should be allowed to vote until you're either 1 or 2 generations in as an Australian citizen. So we get a lot of immigrants who will come in here, they'll get a business, they'll do whatever they do, send a lot of bunch back home, no problem with that. Others do, I don't. I think if my family migrated to, for example, mum and dad to England and they needed some money, I would wire them some money if they requested it. So I can get why other people from other countries look after their families. You know, for all of us, for me, it's God first, family second, country third. You know, I think that's a pretty rational sort of thing. So I'm going to look after my family, but, you know, and that'll be more important to me than looking after my country. I think they're all very closely aligned. As a Christian, God is first and foremost in my life, family second, country third. And so I think most of us would have that priority. Some may not. That's fine. You do whatever you want to do. But I just think, you know, when it comes to a vote, and this got inspired to me by the idiots that we had in Parliament, you should be 2 terms in. Sorry, 2 citizen. God, I get this right. 2 generations in from being a citizen. So when a person arrives here and they get their citizenship, their children won't get the vote, but their grandchildren will. You know, there's got to be, I think, a term that shows you're here for the long term. Now, that could be a bit harsh. People might say, well, if the kids are born in, they deserve a vote. You could be right. I'm saying 2. I'm open for negotiation on that. Everything's a negotiation. But I would say 2, and then you're the second generation, because we know now you've committed long-term to the country. So you get your vote. Those kids get their vote in the second generation from any immigration into the country. They also would have then acclimatized into the Australian culture. They'd be able to speak our language properly. They would have work here. They'd be paying taxes. They would be raising kids that adopt Australian culture. and it would be just a simpler, smoother process. Whereas right now, we've got our parliament that hate the country, would love to tear it down. Right? That's just a fact. I don't think you should be a dual citizen and be able to sit in our parliament. You need to be an Australian citizen first and only. So that's definitely Australia first. If you're a person that speaks out against Australia, like Maureen Farquhar does regularly, she should be able to be kicked out of our parliament. Everyone that goes in that parliament, their sole main priority is to govern this nation to the best of their ability in the best interest of Australian citizens. And that's as simple as that. That's all they need to be doing. And if you can't do that, you should bugger off out of the parliament. All right? There should be value added to our ability to vote too. So Patrick Bet David, he had this idea in America, and I'm stealing the policy. I thought I already had, but I'll write it up now, where if his theory was, if I was a business owner and I employed 15 people, because I'm being productive, creating business, employing people, those people are going to pay taxes to the government, I should then get 2 votes. If I'm a business owner with a mid-sized company, let's say I employ 300 people, I should then get 3 votes. Likewise, if I'm a person who's been on benefits for 20 years and I'm not really contributing anything to society, and I just sort of wake up in the middle of the day and join an Antifa group, I shouldn't get a vote at all. Now, I totally agree with that. Let's reward the people who are productive and are contributing back to this country to make this the best country on the planet. And if you're not doing that, you should, 1, lose your right to vote, and number 2, you should lose your right to stand as a politician. So I think if you give value to citizenship, and the most important part of that citizenship is be able to vote in that democracy, those are things that you should be requiring. I think that should also extend to party politics. So if it can be proven, and how you do this, it'll be interesting. But so, for example, I don't think the Greens act in Australia's best interest. Certainly the socialists don't. It could be argued the ALP don't. Could be argued the LNP at times don't, though I think they're better than most. Of the others, that's not saying a lot because the bar's pretty low. So anyway, there should be some criteria attached to citizenship and being able to sit in our parliament. And all of those go back to what I just said. Are you being a productive member of the society that you're in? Are you making Australia better? Are you serving Australia's interest? Are you helping Australian citizens? So that'll be the policy that I'll put up next week. Sorry, I thought I'd already done it. Told it's been a long week. And I hadn't. So there you go. But there is at least a talk about policy. Sorry, I got my old podcast stick. Time. Don't know how long we'll go because I got to admit I'm pretty tired after today, but we're going to do our X thing. So let's share the screen. If anyone's got any comments, feel free. Bookmarks. We'll quickly get into my favourite lady I just mentioned. She's still in there. Here we go. Do I have you on board? Yes, we do. Let's see what Maureen. Is it Maureen or Marine? Don't know. Don't really care, to be honest. But let's see what she's got to say, this skanky little...
Just wow. We must be living in a parallel universe here, honestly. You would have thought that many of the coalition MPs and senators and Labour MPs and senators, you would have thought that they would perhaps understand the meaning of burning down the house, given that many of you white people in here claim English as your first language, that you would actually know what this means. Or maybe some of you have heard the Talking Heads song Burning Down the House in the 80s, which is about liberation, it is about freedom, it is about breaking free. But no, for heaven's sake, this is a metaphor. It is a metaphor. Is it a figure of speech?
Order. Senator Faruqi. Order. Senator Ruston was heard in silence. Senator Faruqi, you have the call.
Like I said, for heaven's sakes, it's a figure of speech, it is a metaphor. But no, it didn't take 2 seconds. It did not take 2 seconds for Labour and coalition senators and MPs to start a pile-on Senator Thorpe.
Senator McKenzie. Order.
Senator Thorpe spoke truth to power about the genocide of First Nations people. This is how you treat people of color. So I'm not surprised at all that you're ranting back at me. Senator Thorpe spoke truth to power when she spoke about the genocide of First Nations people in this country and the genocide of Palestinians in Gaza. And you all can't bear to hear the truth. And of course, one of the first acts of this colony's NSI teams is to target, not neo-Nazis. Don't target neo-Nazis once you set up this team, but target a black senator. That is absolutely disgraceful and shameful. Your actions and your condemnations are strong for people who want to hold Israel to account for their genocide, who want to hold people in this country to account for the genocide of First Nations people. But you are silent. You are silent about holding the perpetrators of Israel's genocide to account. You are completely silent, or even worse, frankly, you support it. You support that genocide and
Senator Faruqi,
and you shield Israel.
Senator Faruqi, that is unparliamentary. I would ask you to withdraw.
What a bitch. Oh my God. What a... So if any liberal, we all have our issues with the liberals, but let's face it, if any liberal had spoken like that in the parliament, they would be getting caned. They would be copping it as racist, as all the names under the sun you could get. Anyone from the right would be just getting a pounding for that sort of language. I'm getting over all this genocide bullshit. I'm sorry. I mean, if you FAFO, none of us will ever know the real truth. There's so many theories going on about it. But the fact is, Hamas, with the support of Palestinian citizens, went into Israel and murdered 1,200 citizens. And people can deny that or whatever. They knew going in there that Israel was going to come back and do the job. They weren't going to cop that. And then they're talking about a genocide. If you didn't want them to do that, you should never have gone in the first place. You provoke a sleeping bear, the sleeping bear's going to bloody bite your head off. So, and that's exactly what happened. And then to start calling us, we've committed the genocide. It's just such lazy IQ. It really is. If there was a genocide, why have we got Indigenous footballers running around on our football fields? Why do we celebrate them, our Indigenous athletes? Why is there native title? Why is there separate voices to parliaments about Indigenous communities? I mean, it's just ridiculous, the whole thing. Was there crimes committed? Yes, there was. Were there massacres? Yes, there was. Was there a genocide? You can say probably in Tasmania, yes, there was. But again, and this is not to excuse it, totally different times. Coming from England to Australia was like coming from Earth to Mars. And again, you compare what the British did here in Australia to what the Spanish did in South America. It is chalk and cheese. If you want to see a genocide, that's it. And it's interesting, Maureen Farquhar, she gets in there with her kafaya or whatever you pronounce it. And, there was a real video which I'm about to bring you. I'm hoping I've got an Eureka Conservative bookmark. But there was a lady from Nigeria. All right, I'll see if I can get this up. Sorry. There's a lady from Nigeria. So in Nigeria, the Christians are getting killed at a ridiculous rate. No one who's pushing the genocide theory with here we go. I'm just trying to find it, guys. Maybe I can't find it. Maybe it's a reply. No one pushing that. Oh my God. In notifications. Sorry, guys. I'll share my screen so you know what I'm doing. No one of these people pushing the Palestinian stuff ever talks about what's going in Nigeria with the Christians. No one. I've just got to get this loaded there. I'll see if I can get it out. I just want to show, I think it's just what I saw this morning is just disgraceful. This lady here, just, you got to read this. So this woman here, I'll just read it out for you. This woman in Nigeria watched her husband and children be murdered in front of her. Then Islamists chopped off her hand just because she's a Christian. Please utilise just a tiny fraction of America. So this person, concerned citizen, is writing to Trump and Vance. Please utilise just a tiny fraction of America's superpower and go save Christian villages and churches from being burned down and save Christian Nigerians being murdered, putting pay and an end to those committing this genocide. How often do we hear about that? Look at this poor woman. And if I play it, which I will, I mean, she's just in agony. She's lost her family. You know, that never gets talked about. And there's more horrendous videos than that you can find. So, you know, they pick and choose, you know, this genocide mantra. They will not talk about it in regards to what the Nigerians are going through. Sorry, guys. There we go. So there's more info. Oh, Israel's committing a genocide. Australia's committing a genocide. She's a Muslim from Pakistan. Have they committed genocides? Is any part of the Islamic community committed genocides? Hell yes. There's been a number of them. So what they did in Syria was a genocide. What they did in Yemen was a genocide. What they're doing in Nigeria was a genocide. If you go back 100 years, what the Turkish Muslims did to the Armenians was a genocide. So you find them all over the what the Iraqis under Saddam Hussein did to other Muslims was a genocide. So, you know, if you're a Muslim and you're throwing away the genocide tag like she is, because she's a bitch, then you're just a hypocrite. And that's the example of the sort of person that I was just talking about that shouldn't be sitting in our parliament. So, yeah. That just got me a bit annoyed. There's my another rant for the day. Let's get back into it. And we'll have a look at the news of the day. I haven't had time to do policy. I haven't had a real bunch of time to anything into my feed. So we'll just go through what I've commented on today. Don't even know what that is. It's going to, oh no, that's notifications. What I want to do is get into my comments. One nation will stop foreign ownership in houses on farmland. Good. That's one of our policies. He's wearing medals, other people, blah, blah, blah. Our call has come. Are you Australia? Well, there we go. Let's have a listen. He's really good, this guy. I like him. I don't agree with everything he says, but I agree with most things. He's got Australia first until I die. Well, actually, I think this is the one. This is also
Australia first until I die. The deeper I get into this game, the more research that I do, the clearer it all becomes. The rot in Canberra is running too deep. You know, and I always have people say this to me. Sam, what's your end game with all this? What's your end goal? Politics, TV, and it's none of that. Not right now anyway. My mission is to wake up a nation. To spark a cultural revolution in Australia that makes people demand better from the people who are working for us. Because apart from a tiny few, this political class, they're already captured. Labor and Liberal, both of them, completely done. They are corrupted, captured, bought and paid for. They signed their deals and they're in too deep to get out of any of this. And that's exactly why this fight isn't about them anymore. It's about us. Look, I'm definitely here to wake up the current generation of Australia. But one of my biggest, well, that's the next generation.
So, okay. I agree with a lot of what he says there, but I'm still not convinced. And no one's brought any evidence that there's no doubt that a number of our politicians serve other interests, right? But I've also got no doubt that there's also a number of them there that do, that in their minds they are serving Australia's interests. So I said this the other day, there is what Sam here is, I think it's Sam is his name. He would be saying about what is Australia first, but that's going to be different to what someone else will say is Australia first. So I think you've got to be careful you don't, and especially when you go to Australia first, now that I think it's been hijacked a lot by the NSN, the moment you start saying this, you'll get labelled a Nazi. And I don't think Sam's a Nazi, by the way. I don't think Shallow, I always get it wrong. I think it's Shallow Chell. You got Scott and Sam, it always confuses me. I don't think he's an NSN guy. But you are working in a group that deals with the NSN, so you get tainted. And everyone can deny that and do all this. I also think patriotism is not restricted to one generation. I don't like this, how we've got to get through the next generation. I don't think Scott understands. I want my country to go back to what it was. I'm a boomer. So his message can be just as powerful to me as the next generation. Having to wait something up, we don't want to be pitting one generation against the other. We all want it to be coming together. And the fact is, unless you are talking about a physical revolution, like going to war with your own citizens, the only way to do that is through a democratic vote. That's the way we bring change about. So why ostracize a whole generation that can help you achieve it? So I just think some of that language, and I get it, the emotion gets everyone, and you can be just, passionate about it without trying to divide us. So I do have an issue there.
In a few years from now, after I get old, have some grey hairs, raise a big family, 3 to 5 kids, and their kids are having kids, I want to look back on my life and know that when it was my time to stand up, I stood up. That I stood up for a nation, and that I built a cultural movement that not only woke up the current Australians, but lit a fire in the next generation to carry this fight forward. And
okay, I agree again. But what people on like Scott and Sam have got to do is they've got to identify and say very clearly what is that next generation. And I'll tell you why. My experience on this a little bit is, I've said this a few times in the show, I coach a whole bunch of different kids. Just any kid who wants to come and play basketball, I'll coach them. I love the sport. I love coaching kids. I love mentoring them. I don't care about their background. If they're born here and living here, to me, they're an Aussie. So, whether they're black, white, whatever, different. And now if he's talking about that as well moving forward, great. This is where I think the Australia First message has got to become clearer. What do you mean by identify what is Australia First? I think I could sit down, and I'll do this next week, what Australia First should be. Now, not everyone's going to agree with that, so that's fine. Everyone's got their different views. So I think we've got to try a clear definition that can win across the board. You've got to bring people with you to win these fights. I'm just a bit concerned. I know 2 families that are 2 generations in. So under what I was saying before, they're citizens. They already are now anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But they're really good people, productive people, pay their taxes, live here, send their kids to school, got their kids playing sport, are working hard to make their lives better for their next family. But culturally, they go back a few. I can tell you now, these are good Australian people. But the message here would scare the shit out of them because a lot of them see this as a white nationalist thing. And I think we've got to find a way to get past that. So, and I think you've got to get a messaging out there that will get you past that. I would love to get to, I can't wait with Scott to have a chat to him about it, to find out where he is. Like I said, I think this guy, Sam, is an unbelievable speaker too. They've both got so much potential and probably more outside Parliament than inside Parliament. But they could do a lot of good, these two. But if I was giving them any advice from an old man, putting an old man's head on a young man's shoulders, not soften the message, broaden the message. And I think a lot of these people that these guys would scare the shit out of would come with them. And that's what you want. If you want change in Australia, the only way, and I don't want a civil war, for example. That's not getting us anywhere. There's a lot of people dying. Nothing good comes out of a civil war. It will take you decades to recover from that. But we can change government, and we can change government for the better, but you need to broaden your base for that message to appeal to people to come behind you and support you. So I do think they've got to be smarter a little bit with their messaging. And love
that fight is to expel the corruption from Canberra. I want to harden the next generation.
Here. No problem with that. But not all the politicians in Canberra are corrupt. A lot of them are, and a lot of them we don't agree with, but we're the ones who vote them in. So I'll try not to interrupt him again.
Generation that only puts Australia first. No foreign governments, no foreign lobbying, no big business, no billionaires. I want to inspire a generation ready to sacrifice everything for this country. And yeah, this game that I'm in now.
Okay, I said I'd try not to do it. Okay, no foreign lobbyists, no big companies, no billionaires. This is what I was talking about before. Now, I think you've got to be careful, but for Australia to reach its potential, we are probably going to need foreign investment. Investing in a company, like my company, I've got a share company, I'm looking for investors. To get up what I want to do in Melbourne, if I got an investor from overseas, I'd take him in a heartbeat. Because that investor has shares in my company, he would enjoy the profits of it, but he's helped me establish something in Melbourne that's going to benefit Australian citizens. So this is what I was saying before about Australia first versus Australia only. Sammy is very passionate about the country, but you've got to be careful that passion doesn't take you somewhere we don't want to go. If we had Elon Musk come in and say, well, I want to invest in AI in Australia and I want to bring a lot of employment to that country, but on the condition, though, that, you free up your freedom of speech laws, would we really be saying no to that? Is that the billionaire he wants to keep out, or is it some billionaires you want to keep out? That's where the messaging, I think, has got to become clearer. You can be Australia first and have foreign investment. Foreign investment can be a good thing for Australia and our citizens. It's just got to be done right. The problem where I do agree with Scott is I'm not confident a lot of the imbeciles we have in our parliament can do that right. Whereas in America, for example, they got Trump, and this is what he's done all his life.
Of course, I've got a bit of a familiar face. My merch program's going good. My Patreon program is unreal. Right, they asked to get photos of me. It's all a bit of a spin. But do you think that means a damn thing if this cultural revolution doesn't happen? I would give this all up tomorrow. Tomorrow, I will go back to getting 300 downloads an episode, 2 likes for every post that I do, and I'll go back to begging for people to come on this podcast. If it meant that the corruption in Canberra was gone.
I know about begging for people to come on podcasts. Come on, guys. You got to get a thing. And yeah, let's get listening.
And the government, well, they actually work for the people. And of course, people have tried to throw money at me to try and control my narrative while I spill out my voice. But I will never take that, because my narrative is to the Australian people until I die. And that's what makes me so dangerous to them. There's no second best in this fight. There's no, oh yeah, but no exceptions. And if that's not you, then get the hell out of my country and push whatever narrative you want to push in some foreign nation. And to the younger generation, listen to me. You are the future. You can cut out the corruption, you can rip out the foreign influence, and you can make this country work for the people again. And that's why I'm here, and that's why I won't stop. Because yes, this is about the now, but it is also about the tomorrow, about legacy, and about making sure when it's your time to lead, you carry this country on your shoulders with pride. And you lead with one thing in mind: Australia first until we die. And don't you worry, for the people calling it, yeah, I'm taking this show on the road next year for sure. Holding events, speaking to the people, and getting the cultural revolution out there. The fight is on, and I'm for it. What's your thoughts? It's Australia first until I...
Yeah, it's interesting. I love his passion. He speaks very well. It'll be interesting. I'm a bit concerned. And this is why I would love to speak to him. And I hope he gets this message. He probably won't, but I'd love for him to come and talk to a boomer like me. One, so I can sort of set him straight a little bit. It's not just about the next generation. It's about every generation. We're all Australians. We're all in this together. But we also have created the problem. Some of the, across the board, not just the older ones, the younger ones as well, everyone. The younger ones overwhelmingly vote for the ALP and Greens. So I agree with Scott, with Sam, sorry. We've got to change that. But it depends on what you're replacing it with. I'm not yet ready. People might hate me for this because I've hated what the Liberals have become, but I'm not ready to give up on it. Not yet. Not for if there was another party there, I'd be going for it. One Nation is starting to really improve, but there's reasons why I'm nervous about One Nation as well. So for example, One Nation in they haven't had a good track record of keeping their people. They get them voted in, then they'll bail on them. And do they have the people within their party that could actually take on government at the moment? I'm not so sure. I've seen some of the candidates that they get put up. They're not exactly, it's like what I was saying today. They're not exactly the brightest sparks. I mean, you've got to get people, and it's a hard balance. You've got to get people who have the smarts to govern a country. That's not an easy thing. You know, it's all right to talk about cultural revolution and all that, but what comes next? Now, I love what Sam said there with passion, but there's got to be more to it than just passion. And I would love to speak to him about it. So hopefully he gets this and we can sit down and have a good long chat conversation one night. And, you know, old head, young shoulders, whatever. And I would love to be able to come out and back him and do what I can to support him if his message is legitimate. And he said on a couple of programs he's against the Nazis and all that, which is great. But what is the cultural revolution he's talking about? You know, as a Burma, before my time's up, I want to see the future generations have the country that we grew up in. It was the most magnificent country on the planet. And the Burmas, you know, maybe we made a few mistakes. I would say the biggest issue came in when we got Kevin Rudd. Up until that time in my life, it didn't really matter who you voted for. Whoever went in there did a pretty decent job. And I can confidently say, I think the vast bulk of it was pretty much Australian first. I think Bob Hawke was an Australian patriot. Not so sure about Keating. John Howard definitely was. Malcolm Fraser there for a bit was. I think most people before that time were. Kevin Rudd, you know, he's always had his ass up the UN. And everyone just about since except Abbott's been the same. So I think at some stage politics started to become a career instead of something you did to try and make your country better. Can't remember the word for it, but providing service towards sacrificing your business or career to make your country better. There is a word. I can't remember what it is. Sorry. But we've got to get back to that. Cultural revolution bothers me a bit. The last two cultural revolutions were in China and Russia, the Bolshevik Revolution and the Mayo Revolution. And neither of them ended up well for their populace. So, you know, let's get together and chat. What do we mean by that? What do we mean by Australia first? All this sort of thing. Is it black and white? Are you going to be able to accommodate others with a different view? Because lo and behold, people are going to have different views on this. So, and he's a passionate guy. I love the way he speaks. I follow him all the time. I just love to have some of those answers spoken to about. So nothing major. All right. Sorry, just got a tick. Oh, Candace Owens is back. Oh, here we go. Here we go. This guy's an idiot. He just spews out everything Candace Owens says. Let's have a listen. It could be entertaining.
Sure enough, I stumbled upon many messages of him telling me how he would die. And I'm going to show you some of those messages now, a particular set of messages that were written on April 6th, 2018, just a couple of weeks before Kanye tweeted, "I love the way Candace Owens thinks," which is relevant because a lot of things changed after that tweet. And it's relevant because Charlie sensed that something big was about to happen. And I think that is what the something big was. I also want to say, obviously, I am not making up these messages. Okay, turning point. Actually, Mikey McCoy has access to all of Charlie Kirk's messages. They can tell you that these ones are real. Here is what he wrote. We were again talking about Kanye. Charlie wrote to me, "You're going to be the Iron Lady of America." He had such a political vision for me. I never wanted that sort of a thing. I see it so freaking clearly. I might be Moses, though. I might not see this whole thing through. LMAO. If that is the case, be my David. I said, "Dude, you haven't even realized your power yet. You're so young," is what I was thinking. He said, "If I tell you the true prophecy that I know in my gut, it's really sad, but I hope it's wrong." He went on to say, "Anyway, I am not sure if I will live to see the end of this revolution. I believe you were the piece that God meant me to meet that will finish the fight. Since the beginning of TPUSA, I knew in my gut that I might get wiped out at any time. I cannot explain it, but I dream about it all the time, like all the time. Anyway, that's depressing combo for another time, LMAO. I said, "That's weird, more of a fear manifestation than an actualization." He said, I'm not really afraid of it, but I'm just telling you what I know to be true. And he told me that. I don't know why. Charlie knew he was going to die young. And
he didn't say he was going to
I
die.
don't know. I just felt like I needed to share that because it is in part why the moment that Charlie got shot, I just knew he was betrayed spiritually. In the same way that Charlie knew that he was going to die young, I knew that this was a part of something bigger. And so I wanted to say to you guys, sure enough.
Sorry if you're a fan of Candace Owens, but she's an evil bitch. I'm sorry. And you know the sad part about this, there could be some sort of thing in the background that we don't know all about, but she's guessing. And that text doesn't say he knew he was going to die. He said he might not see it through. You know, someone at Turning Point USA, it's an organisation, he might get turfed out. That happens all the time. And she's twisting these texts to mean something that they're not. And she's done it ever since he got assassinated. And you can't tell me this is not to lift her profile. I think it's the most shameful influencer thing I've ever seen on the internet. And if you're getting sucked in by it, have a second thought about it. Some of the ramblings, this woman, she needs help. Her husband needs to take her off this live stream podcast, whatever he does, and get her some help. She's not sailing close to the wind. She's just grasping at straws, trying to prove something that she can't prove. Leave it to the experts. See what they come up with. They haven't even come out with the court case, their findings or whatever, and she thinks she knows it all. She's just an evil, evil woman, and I used to be a fan. But, you know, I don't know what's going on. She doesn't know what's going on. The fact that she can blame TP USA for Charlie's death, and also Eureka for Charlie's death. There's some things that Eureka's done that doesn't sit well with me, but how can you accuse her of killing her husband without any proof? She's coming out publicly. She went out yesterday and said, I'm going to be your enemy. I'm going to make you all my enemies. She's coming for these people that Charlie worked with and built his life around. And now she's using private conversations that she had with him, and she's posting it for the whole world to see. I think it's shameful. I mean, the man has just died. You know, she should be sharing this. She'll say, I can't share it with the authorities. I mean, she could share this with authorities and still keep it. You know, they're her messages. Does she need to be broadcasting it? I just find her a shameful, shameful person. If you love her, good, fair enough. I used to. Feel free not to love her anymore. I don't know. I just don't know why you would. But anyway, that's up to those who do. She is a weird woman. And this guy's worse. He just parrots everything he says. I don't know why I get him into it. George Christensen just bumped in the Honourable Tony Abbott at Sydney Airport in short walk from entrance to security. Folks young and old were treating him like a rock star. With things looking down all around for Australia right now, his leadership is sorely missed. There's a lot of people that won't agree with this. I would love to see the Liberals recruit Tony Abbott back into the fold. Not too sure he'd go back into it, but I reckon he would be the man we need right now. He won't be popular with everyone. Neither was Trump. I actually think, I think put him in a safe seat, as safe as you can get, put him back as leader, and let him come back into politics. Winston Churchill did it. I think Abbott would be very good, and he'd get the Liberals back on the straight and narrow. Would love to see it. Hey, Sammy, what's Sammy saying?
The final thing that's happening with the Welcome to Country, they're now doing it in tongues. Someone comes out and speaks gibberish about a language you have no idea what they're saying. Why? Why? Why we? And they're naming all the states, new state schools. They're naming them Aboriginal names. Why? You'll say, I'm going to Gumpalika School. They say, where is that? It's in Malvern. I said, why don't we call it the Malvern State School? Who are we trying to patronise? We're just dividing people. We want to be all one. And I see now that the government, the state government, talk about slobbering suck-ups, all school children are to learn truth-telling under the treaty agreement. This is the treaty agreement that was voted no when they decided we won't have a voice to Parliament, but the state government said, oh no, we're not taking any notice of the public. What happens if you didn't want your child to be radicalised, brainwashed, propagandised? Just let them decide. Don't have to teach them about the history because they'll lie about the history.
If I was the Liberals in Victoria, I would seriously, this might sound strange, I would seriously consider recruiting Sam to be, the opposition leader. I think he'd be great. So, here we go. Fourth generation Australian born Croats choose Croatia over Australia. Yeah, well, I agree with that. That's an issue. This is officially replacing the Andrew Breitbart war clip and the future hype reels. Candace Owens, all I can say is, well, Warrior, yeah, no, not really want to watch that. But they're off to just have my say on Candace Owens. Sorry, guys. Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes, Alex Jones. I can't stand this prick. I mean, seriously. Again, if you like him, fine. You can choose, and everyone can choose who they like and who they don't like and who they want to follow. Nick Fuentes, I don't agree with him, but I actually at least find him entertaining. Alex Jones, I find annoying. Tucker Carlson, I think, is weird. So, yeah, not really interested in watching that. What else have we got? White people. Ben Fordham, yeah, double standards for sure. Perhaps some conservatives do not yet fully understand the vile hatred Fuentes represents. Hopefully this thread has made it more clear where he is and what he believes. Be interested in that. I actually think Nick Fuentes seems to have chilled a little bit, but Benny Johnson's good value. So one thing I try and do through the podcast is if you're on X, try and give you people I think are good value. This feeds back into what Sam was put for. This is a sad reality. Young Aussies are losing their sense of belonging. You won't believe how many people they say feel isolated. That'll be interesting. I'll listen to that later. Won't worry about now. Add to folder. If you don't have bookmarks, you should use them. They're really good. So, like I don't have time, right? I don't want to go through all of these. Marine Farquhar, she's getting it, and Candace Owens. I want war. So here we go. We'll go back to Candace a little bit. This is the thing I was saying before about how she wants to declare war on Charlie's organisation.
Everything Turning Point is doing is wrong, and you know it's wrong. You know it's wrong deep down. And I want to say this because there has been a lot of reading in between the lines. It's strange to me. I think I'm a very direct person and I say what I mean. And I do not want people to mistake what's happening right now or to wrongly assume my intentions here. So allow me to be very explicit, okay? I want war with all of you, okay? All of you.
Hope they give it to her.
There's a reason. I'm going to get to that reason in a little bit. But I want war with all of you. So write your articles, issue your statements, email the White House, reach out for comment, okay? Say whatever it is you want to say about me. I want war with all of you.
Okay, you're a crazy bitch.
Because I know this isn't right. And there is no way you are going to convince me and the rest of the world that all of this is normal. And for people that are involved, the many people that are involved.
I love the way she puts the rest of the world on her shoulders because half the world thinks she's crazy. So she shouldn't be saying the rest of the world. She should say my Candace Owens groupies or crazies.
In this, not the lone shooter. At different stages, people that are involved, people that know things, that are watching this, maybe in an office cubicle and know things.
Rumor and innuendo, people that know things. She doesn't have any receipts, just rumor and innuendo.
And want you to know that if you choose not to come clean, you are about to become very famous. Okay. I am talking like through the ages famous, the kind of fame that most people cannot even comprehend.
Now, I've heard this type of language from her right since Charlie Kirk's death, and even before it. She makes these threats to certain people, how you're going to become famous, and she's got all this to reveal. And nothing ever comes of it.
Cannot comprehend that level of fame. Like I'm talking about the level of fame that can kill a name. You know what I mean? Like nobody names their kid Judas anymore. Nobody names their kid Adolf anymore. I'm talking about that level of fame.
Woman's insane.
So I'd come clean. I think there's a way out for you if you come clean and you get with God.
That woman likes to talk about getting with God. She's not a godly person. Anyway, what's Tucker saying? Nick Fuentes claimed today I colluded with living in me to get him fired, blah, blah, blah. Can be bothered, you white people. She's getting a lot of coverage. Love this lady. She's fighting for the unborn. She's been doing it. She's got so much energy. I admire her. I don't know how she does it, But every day she's on the social media fields trying to pressure our politicians, both state and federal, about saving as many of our unborns as possible. So good on her. Hitler was really... Oh, yeah. I do have to bookmark that. I might listen to it when I've got nothing better to do later on. I am interested to see the questions on there. So I'm not going to lie. I will listen to it, but not quite. Now, give them minutes. I'll take a mile right back. Oh, shall. All right, here's a great way to finish. Australia's building industry massive. This is what I like about him. He comes up. I think he's a builder by trade. And what I do like about Shell, he brings up really good information about what's going on in the background in the construction industry. Let's have a listen.
Oh, what's going on with our building industry? Why has this number absolutely fallen off a cliff? Building approvals have never been harder to get. In fact, they're so difficult now that the government's even looking at its own national construction code and delaying the rollout of the NCC 2025 because they know they done fucked up. The NCC, National Construction Code, is full of shit that doesn't make housing supply more affordable or better for you to get into a house. It doesn't increase the supply of houses. All it does is completely greenwash the fucking building industry with even more green tape and red tape and fucking compliance for shit like NDIS ramps and shit like that you will never ever need and never fucking make your life more affordable and better. Costs. Absolute blowouts. The last 2 years, the cost to build anything is up by about 40 to 50%. Absolute fucking nightmare trying to keep up with the pricing points in this industry. Builder collapse. 7,000 of them. 7,000 just in the last couple of years since Albo got elected initially, like 7,000. Think about that, 7,000 building companies. No builders, no building. And just to top it all off, your Albanese government has done absolutely fuck all to stop those builders from collapsing. They did nothing. They just stood back and let it happen. No industry intervention to help save the building companies. Financing. It's really fucking difficult to get financing for new build projects at the moment, especially if you're a developer, especially if you're a builder. Most people are up to their eyeballs, mortgaged out, tapped out. They can't get the finance to get in the door. Shitty government schemes. Shitty. 5% deposits. Do you think that's going to help kick up the building number? No, it is not. Or just put more price pressure on existing stock?
Yes, it will.
Nothing's going to change. Like, fuck, it's so fucking obvious what needs to be done to rectify things. The federal government delaying the rollout of NCC 2025 is a clear indicator that things were fucked for a really long time. It was fucked back in the 22 NCC. Now it's even worse. Your federal government is using this decimation of the Australian building industry as an excuse to import more Indians from the subcontinent. They want to bring in 1 million more Indians to build more homes to help them reach their housing target while Aussies collapse. And those of us in the building industry, every single builder out there, we've been screaming about it non-stop. In fact, I've made hundreds and hundreds of TikToks telling you all about it. Fuck, I was right years ago. What happens next? It gets worse. It gets worse. It won't get better. This is not something that can be solved by this government or the next government or any government other than a government full of patriots that believe in Australia first. And until that happens, there is no political solution to this problem. This is a final side note to that. If you elect lawyers, you get laws. If you elect bureaucrats, you get more bureaucracy. If you elect builders, you get buildings. Think about that.
Yeah, it's a bit, again, it's that there's just that little language at the end. I think most of that is really good and he's spot on. You know, I'm not a builder, but I've talked to a number and I've talked to a couple in the real estate agencies and they're talking about all that green tape he's talking about has exploded prices. What you're expected to put into an Australian house now to take advantage of renewables and all the NDIS and all that sort of crap. It's just making properties prices go up and up and up. So I disagree with him where he says no government can fix it. These problems are solvable. You've just got to have the intestinal fortitude to solve it. Now, if my problem with this whole Australia First movement and where it goes, I think it's tainted at the moment and I don't see it changing the government. So we're going to continue having this problem. So it goes back to what I was saying before. We've got to get enough of a base, whatever it is, whether it's the Liberals, the Nationals, One Nation, whatever, we've got to get, and I agree with Scott, I'm getting confused between Scott and Sam, I would love to see a few more builders. We used to have them in our parliament. If you go back to the Bob Hawke day, I mean, Bob Hawke got there because he was the head of a trade union movement, but there was builders within the Labor Party back then. There was actually tradesmen all, of different sort of types. Now they're all union officials who have not got the first idea. They're all uni graduates who haven't got the first idea about what a real job is or a building industry job is. So he's spot on with a lot of his observation. I don't agree though that we can't. We've got to be in a position. This is why I haven't given up on it. So I'll get my ugly face back up here. Last point for the night in Australia First. We can't be in a position where we say, well, it's only the next generation, or it's only the Australian First, or it's only this. Because if we do that, it's going to take us freaking decades to get out of this mess. They talk, both Scott and Sam, about waking people up. There are people within, there's good people within the Federal Liberal Party that you can wake up that are awake. You know, Barnaby Joyce, for example, whatever, and I don't necessarily agree with him, jumping ship. But, you know, he's talking some of these issues through with net zero, with immigration. So is Andrew Hastie. So is Jacinta Price. There's Angus Taylor's there. You got Michaela Cash. There's a whole bunch of them in that Liberal Party. They're just not the majority. You know, not at least yet. Now, how do we get enough of those politicians on the centre right to come together to form a viable government that can bring in people with the required knowledge we need to turn this around? That, I think, is your bigger question. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. There are good people that will align with our ideas, and my ideas aren't much different, for example, to Scott or Sam's. But what they're saying is we need this revolution, this cultural thing. Well, yeah, how long is that going to take? I've been listening to this sort of language for some time now. And you know what's happened in that time? Albo got elected in twice in a row. We've got state governments, except for Queensland. And don't tell me the Tasmanian government is centre-right. It's centre-left. You know, it relies on the balance of power from Greens and a whole bunch of things. So the only centre-right government we've got in this country is in Queensland. And maybe in the Northern Territory. She's been pretty good up there. But we've got to find – I actually think we've got to find a way, and this will be unpopular with a lot of people. We've got to find a way to get the old Liberals back. Now, I don't know the solution to that. I want to talk to people. But the funny thing with especially a lot of the people that have left the Liberal Party, they don't want to come and talk about it. You know, I've asked a few of them to come on. And maybe by getting this message out, we could find a way. But if you're having some sort of cultural revolution, you better hurry up with it. And is it cultural revolution that's going to be good for the country? I'm not so sure. I think, for example, Scott's got a lot to offer. If I was leading the Liberal Party now, I would be getting Scott into my office and saying, mate, what's going on with the building industry? How do we fix this? Have you got any ideas? You know, they had that round table. Remember the fucking round table thing? Sorry, now Scott's got me swearing. Remember that round table thing Albo did? Totally waste of time. You know, you get all the corporate knobs, and most of the corporate knobs, they're all, again, uni graduates. Get someone in the industry like Scott, who he knows his stuff. Like he said, I've listened to now a lot of these TikTok feeds that come in. He is really good. I like listening to him. It gives me some ideas for, you know, the whole policy platform. I would love Scott, and I will talk to him about this if he comes on the program, to come up with a building industry policy platform that will make cost of construction cheaper, will make it more available. What have we got to do to get there? There's an old saying that one guy I really admired as a president of one of my sports clubs years ago when I was younger. And, you know, there was a few things I used to bitch about to him, and he goes, Bob, you got to stop bitching. I go, what do you mean? He goes, look, we all have issues, right? He goes, there's always problems. He said, I don't want you to come to my door with a problem from here on in. I want you to come to my door with a solution. And then let's work on the solution. So there is a solution to our housing crisis. What is it? And Scott is perfectly positioned to be a part of that solution. And I think there's got to be, not a kumbaya moment, but there's got to be a meeting in the minds. There are certain people within the LNP that would line up with a lot of the beliefs that Scott and Sam have. How do we get all those together? You know, I think my beliefs line up in many of those issues, but there are certain things I just won't go down the rabbit hole with. So NSN is one of them. It's just not, I'm never going there. And I think a lot of my generation won't go there. So I have said this in past episodes. I'll say it to Scott if I interview him. I'd like to see Scott branch out on his own. I'm really encouraged by Sam doing that tour. I think that, whether it's a Charlie Kirk tour, I don't know what he's got in. I think it'd be fantastic. And I hope he gets guests on there and he gives Q&As and all this sort of thing. I think he's a really great talker, really smart guy. I'd love to see him do it. I definitely, if he comes to Melbourne, I'd do my bit to try, one, to promote it, and two, get along to it. I think it'd be really good. But, we've got to have those conversations. We've got to engage, and we don't. I'll go back to this again. You don't want to ostracize a lot of the demographic that will support you. So I do think we've got to be careful of our language. So, for example, a cultural revolution, if you say that to any person that's got a Chinese background that's been here and they're a citizen and, they could support you. And a lot of the Chinese, they're as conservative as you'll get. And the same thing with a lot of the Vietnamese. And even, I tell you who is even more conservative, if you really give them a chance, is the Islamist community. And I saw an interview with Tommy Robinson and Avi Yemeni, and they were in a shop in Jerusalem with a Muslim shop owner. And, he was just a decent guy, got on with everyone. He's selling, what was it? Selling a Jewish T-shirt to Tommy Robinson, so you had a Jew, a Christian, and a Muslim, all in the, it's like a joke. But that's the way we should be. And there's a lot of conservative policy, center-right policy that matches a lot of Islamic ideology. So big families, number one. Pro-life, number two. Faith, number three. Starting a business and bettering your life, number four. These are all things we share on the center-right with a lot of the immigrant community and those who've been here 2-3 generations. So when you start banging on about remigration and white nationalism and all that sort of thing, you potentially lose the people that can help you get where you want to go, because you still got to win bloody elections. And whether you like it or not, we're not the white Australia we used to be, so we're not ever going to dominate it. And the fact is, a lot of white Australia doesn't agree with this policy. So I just think you've got to fix the messaging a little bit. And then I think Scott, Sam, me, and everyone like us can all sort of come together and say, this is something now powerful. This is now embracing a lot of people in this country. This is going to get rid of those corrupt politicians. This is going to bring housing prices down. This is going to put Australia first. But can a person that's not Anglo, that's been a citizen here 2 generations, be part of Australia first? In my book, hell yes. If they adopt our culture, if they don't hate on our history and our heritage and what we believe in, then they can be just as proud of that. I know a lot of them that will wave that flag on Australia Day more than a lot of white Australians will. A lot of them have been indoctrinated to hate our country. So, we can fix an awful lot of things in this country, but it's got to need a collective effort. So we don't want to go down where we're splintering ourselves, and we've done this for freaking too long. On the centre right, we keep splintering ourselves, and then we lose. We've been doing it for, over a decade, probably ever since Turnbull deposed Abbott. And, Morrison went on about his win in 2009. Morrison won because no one wanted the ALP. I'm still a really big believer that if you can get up a conservative movement, a centre-right movement that embraces the Australian culture, that doesn't ostracise a lot of the community. And, for example, I'm against multiculturalism. I'm against diversity, but I'm not against people from different cultures coming into Australia and adopting the Australian culture. And I don't think any of us should be. So anyway, that's just me. Maybe that's my Christian principles. So I look forward to, and I'm very confident. I've listened again a lot to Scott and Sam. I think they have a lot of those similar principles. I don't really know them well enough to be 100% sure of that, but that's why I'd love to get them on a podcast and we chat and have a meeting of the generations, a meeting of the mind, the younger generation with the older generation, and let's see where it leads us. But that's enough. It's been a big episode of the Bob Rant tonight, and oh my God, look at that. That's my boy. That's my JJ. He's come on. You coming over to say hello? Here he comes, a poor baby. He's so tired. Here he comes. He was dead set asleep, weren't you? He's just waking up. See, that's what my voice does. It sends him asleep. I bore him to death. You've been a good boy. Or maybe the day did. So, we haven't had dinner yet, so he's going, dinner time, Dad, let's go. All right, everyone. Listen, God bless. Give your families a hug. If you don't have a family like me and you got a pet, there he goes, back on his spot. Give them a hug. Enjoy your day. If you follow me on my rants, I'll be back on tomorrow. Definitely we'll get that policy up on Australia First next week. And I think that's something we've got to try and get into, as I've said all the way through this. It's something that's got to be appealing to anybody that wants to make this the greatest country. That flag, again, means something to what it used to mean. So I don't if you can adopt that and whatever your background is, fantastic. If we can get that message out, then I think that's powerful. And I think that will achieve a lot quicker what Scott and Sam are both talking about. So I look forward, hopefully. I'm going to invite I've invited Scott, and he said he would come on early November. I hope he keeps to that. I'm going to invite Sam. I don't think he even probably knows me, but who knows? He might look at my content and go, great. If you know guys, give him a shout out. I'd love to get him on and have a real good chinwag. I think all of us who are on the centre right have got to start talking more with each other, and we've got to find, excuse me, I've got something on my screen, got to find a bit of a unity ticket going forward. So, we just can't do it separated anymore. We've tried it. It's not working. The preferential stuff doesn't work. It just gets the ALP back in government. So we've got to find a way to come together. We just got to do it. So anyway, that'll do me for the night. God bless. Stay safe. Look after your family and friends and pets. And I'll see you for my rant tomorrow, and I'll see you next Tuesday for the podcast. All right. Bye now. See you, everyone.